Let's see.
Yeah.
I need you on your phone. Look.
What do you want to do?
That's fine. So we are live right now on Facebook, and I have a special guest. Well, you probably know already, Pastor Linda Riquiles, and we're just talking about just the injustice that's going on right now, and and we just want to just talk about like when is it enough? Like enough is enough, and I just want to ask her a couple of questions to kind of get her perspective on the situation that's going on right now. So what I'm going to do first, before we get into the question, I want her to just introduce herself. Just tell us a little bit about herself, like her upbringing, her education background, her credentials, just so you kind of know who she is as an individual.
Okay, you want me to get started right now?
Yes, that'd be great.
All right. I'm Pastor Linda Riquiles, and I am the Cyber Church pastor of Rivers of Living Water Christian Center. Now, my upbringing has been one where I have been doing a lot of migrations from Mississippi to Ohio to Illinois. And so that's a long journey. But in essence, my upbringing is basically coming from what would we call poor, but we didn't know we were poor. Didn't know it until, you get up there. But when I realized that we were poor, I did always have the question as to why are we poor? I don't understand this. I'm looking at a lot of wealth. Now, when I was in elementary school in the 60s, I was one of the first group of folks who were being bused for the sake of segregation, right? Or integration, trying to get rid of that. So I've always ended up encountering places where I've been told constantly that you are actually very ugly. All the other bright-skinned folks around me were beautiful. And so it was really a blessing to me when I got into teenage years and I'm at this all Spanish-speaking school, pretty predominantly Spanish-speaking school. And they said, "Do you know what your name means?" And I'm like, "No." And they said, "It means pretty." I'm like, whoa, finally, I'm getting some affirmation. So what that said to me, I'm sharing that with you as far as what my background is that it's showing the cultural ingrained identity that I received through the 60s. And even today, I think that's what is still happening. It's called having an inferiority complex, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I grew up in the high school, thank God it's changed now, but in high school when I grew up, they said Black people didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything started at slavery and they were happy slaves. So I really went on a search for more information because it just didn't sit well with me. And like, something is definitely wrong with this picture. So that's been most of my life. My education is there only because I'm searching out truth. And I know that there's got to be a lie that's been told. So yes, my education, I have a couple of master's degrees, but as Paul says in the Bible, I'll count it all as dung because my real degree has actually come from living life through a struggle and trying to hold your head up.
Right.
That's all I'll say that. Okay.
That's awesome. That's good. That's good. So I just wanted to throw like some softball questions at you to kind of get the interview going. I'm looking forward to learning just about some of the things that I don't know about just this whole situation that's going on, and I'm always willing to learn and get the other perspective, especially somebody who actually been in or saw or even studied the situation and kind of have a better insight on it. So the first question I want to ask, just for a lot of young people that's probably watching it right now, probably gonna watch it later. When did slavery actually started? When did it actually start? Because like I don't feel like a lot of young, and I would say African American people know when it actually started.
Well, there's two parts to that answer. It actually started in the 1600s in America. And I'm talking about America. Slavery has always been in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So in case you didn't know that, it was a system that if you fought a war, then whoever won, they get to, the other people would have to serve them.
Okay.
There were decency in how they treated them. However, in America, there's something called chattel slavery, and that's when people are treated very inhumanely. And
Mm.
that's the difference. So when they say, oh, slavery has always been around, yes, it has. But it has been a way of that if you lost the war, then you got to serve. And then there's time limits on it. And there are rules about how you be treated and to be treated well. Chattel
Mm.
slavery is what African Americans that we've experienced here in America, where it says you will be treated like chattel.
Mm. Wow. That's interesting. And then for the younger crowd, when did it end?
Did it end?
Quote unquote supposed to have ended.
Okay, so the factual questions, it began around the 1600s, and did it end? No, it ended supposedly around in the 1800s, mid 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly ended with the Emancipation Proclamation,
Mm-hmm.
and then we were all supposed to be free.
Okay.
No, if you read your history books, that's not the case, because now slavery is not only in the system, but it is ingrained in the minds of people.
That's good. That's true. That's true. And I know, like growing up in school, and I learned a little bit about it when I was in college. But I know that the younger generation probably don't know about the Jim Crow. Could you just expound on that just to say what that is so they can kind of know? Because I know like a lot of people drop the Jim Crow name, but I don't think they go into details when they talking to a younger generation.
Yeah, well, the Jim Crow is like a code word, it was actually a person though, but it's a code word for segregation. That here are some things that we can do, here are laws that we can segregate a certain group of people so that we can actually detain them, enslave them, treat them. Actually, during that time, they were thinking, are they even human? Isn't that something?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there was this, Jim Crow is representing anytime you're able to segregate a certain group of people for the purpose of, I'm going to just say it this way, abusing them
Mm-hmm.
legally.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good. So another question I think again, just for the younger generation to kind of understand is that I know a lot of older people talk about like mass incarceration when it comes to African American. Is that part of the keeping us in slavery as well?
Yeah, that's why they're calling it the new Jim Crow.
New Jim Crow.
Yeah, it's the new. You get the cereal and it's new and improved, but it's really the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the new improved Jim Crow because it's more hidden, and it's in a way that more people are saying, oh, it's okay. Because usually when things happen in society, what we want to know is that whoever did it, what did they do? They must be a bad person. Jim Crow has set up us as a way of segregating people to be under a category of these are the really bad people. And here's what they look like. And that group happens to be people of color, in particular African Americans and African American males. Because segregation and to set up people apart to say that this is the group that we're going to oppress, you have to destroy the family.
Yeah.
Okay, slavery destroyed the family, right? And
Right.
so Jim Crow is one of those codes. It's a subtle trickery, and I might get there eventually, of something that's a very evil thing. It is actually very evil, but we don't want to say evil, so we'll say Jim Crow.
Okay. Another thing this is like a personal question for me that I go back and forth with my thoughts. What are your thoughts on when it comes to welfare and the projects as it pertains to the African American community?
Well, my thoughts and my experience. Let me give you my experience. I was on welfare. In my early days, I was on welfare because You know, it was challenging, you know, new family starting out, you know, the husband not able to get work, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
now it's the option was, let's go on welfare. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, I guess so. So I go to the welfare office and they say, sure, do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have that? Pretty much you have nothing. Good, you qualify.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing about welfare is the first criteria is that you have nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You got to prove that you have nothing. Then you qualify for welfare. Then I said, okay, I only need it for a little while though. I only need it for a couple of months till I find a job, and I want to hold the job for a couple of months, and then I want to get off welfare. And they said, no, you can't do that. I'm like, what do you mean? So it's because the minute you get that job, you're going to be cut off. I said, how does that make sense? How are you helping me? It's supposed to help you. And
Mm-hmm.
instead, what welfare was doing is trying to enslave me into a system that will keep me dependent, always begging, always having nothing, always fighting to get somewhere. And the minute you take one step, you're going to have to go back a couple. So no, I don't. I think welfare is not. It's not a good thing because it's not designed. And I don't know. It may be different now because I'm talking a long time ago. But when I was on welfare, and what I still kind of see some of it when we have generation after generation being on welfare and thinking we can live on welfare and that's fine. And it's like, well, no, this is really good. No, it's not good because it's a process of making sure that we become dependent, not self-sufficient. And when you're dependent and not self-sufficient, that's like a new Jim Crow.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that's a way to segregate and say, here's a group of people that we can say, these are the bad people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what it should do, if welfare actually helped people and empowered folks, like, yeah, why didn't you just let me get there to get the help? You know, you have to have your evaluation period, 3 months on the job before you know you're kind of solid.
Right, yeah.
When that happens, then you cut them off so that because you have to catch up. That means you're helping people, and that is not what welfare does. And so I don't like it. I would say, I mean, you got to do what you have to do to take care of yourself, but don't make it a lifestyle because you're buying into like, yeah, that's going to be your lifestyle. You're going to always have nothing. I'm like, wait a minute, I think I'm pretty strong. I can provide. I'm smart. You know, and it tells you all those other things. You got to stay, ignorant. You got to have all the things that are wrong, right? So I probably lost the other half of your question, but that's my feeling on welfare.
No, the other thing was just about it just coexist with projects. I think projects and welfare kind of go hand in hand. Most people that's in the project tend to be on welfare. So it kind of answered my question because I think
let me add another part to that, because when I first moved to Chicago and the housing projects originally, like it was before Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated. During that time, the housing projects had a mixture of people in there, not just low income. There were middle income people. There were families who were working families in there. And what happened is they started moving the working families out and just leaving all the poverty in there. And I was in the housing project called Cabrini Green that was really close to the Gold Coast in Chicago. And it was like an intentional deterioration that was put in place. So it can now look the way it looks today.
Wow, that's crazy. All right, so let me just hit you like while we hear questions. Why we here? There's a lot of people. Like I went on Facebook Live yesterday so I had a lot of people. They just checking on me to see how I feel as an African American man. And I was like, you know what? If people are asking me this, maybe I should go on and talk to them. Just so they can hear from a African American perspective on how we may or may not be feeling, but a lot of people still got a lot of questions. I mean, like they still want to know. Some people of other race, they probably want to know how can they help, and then you got African American who don't know what to do because they feel powerless in this situation. So I just want to ask you a couple of these questions and see like what's your take on them. So my first question is like, what would you say to African American regarding the incident that happened in Minnesota and like everywhere else?
I would say, first of all, my condolences,
Mhm.
sincere condolences. I'm so sorry that we are still at that place in 2020. And I'd say, understand that what's really happening there is a lot of grieving. It's the effect of hope being deferred, which will make the heart very sick and sad. And we are, that's, it's a way of crying. So I want to first of all just say it's okay to cry.
Mhm.
It's okay to cry because we are human.
Mhm.
And so what's happening in Minnesota is really a lot of crying is going on. I know a lot of folks may not look at it that way, but that's what I see. I see the hurt, I see the pain, that this is continually happening over and over again, and it hurts. And when someone steps on you constantly, you're gonna say, ouch.
Mhm.
Okay, so with that being, understanding that it is a grieving.
Mhm.
I also want us to understand that grieving, it kind of slides down after a while. You kind of adjust to it,
Mhm.
and we kind of get our equilibrium back. And
Mhm.
I would say, I don't want us to get the equilibrium back. I'm not saying stay in the grieving mode. I say, how about get in the proactive mode?
That's good.
Because when we get in the proactive mode, then we'll say, I see what's really happening here. And where a whole group of people are experiencing an injustice.
Mhm.
And it's not good. It's actually very, very evil.
Mhm.
I don't care what name they keep trying to put on it, whoever puts on it. The truth is, it's an injustice that is happening over and over and over again. And
Mhm.
people are being hurt and just what, hoping that, it won't be me next time. It won't
Mhm.
be my child next time, And
Mhm.
this reminds me of the Rodney King event. That was really horrible as well. And I know you see how long ago I've gone back.
Mhm.
So enough is enough.
Yeah.
Enough of this now. But what happens is that we get that grieving and we say, okay, I'm getting used to it. All right, we're all right. And then the
Mhm.
next thing happens, and then we're back on that grieving again. It's like, yeah, it's sad that it's happening, but sadness, so it's not going to get us anywhere.
Mhm.
It's not.
That's
We
true.
gotta do. Okay, I might have to stop there, and I'll let you ask your next question.
No, that was good. That was good. But I gotta. So just you talking about Rodney King, which happened a long time ago, and the people that's out there like writing right now probably weren't even born when that situation happened. But and it just bring me to like say Rodney King and say this situation. So between Rodney King and between this young man in Minnesota, racism still is popping their head up in like all these different locations, these different time frames. It's like it's not put to bed. So why do you think that keep happening? Why do you think racism just keep popping this like the ugly head up in different locations of the world? Yeah, yeah.
I think it's happening because you probably heard this quote that there are good people who are being too silent.
Mm.
Good people were becoming complicit with that activity. And
Mm-hmm.
complicit means that if you don't say anything and you don't stand up and go against it, or let's look at like when someone commits a crime and say they robbed the bank and you're the getaway driver.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? If they catch them, not only the bank robber will get a penalty, but the person who was the getaway guy is going to get a penalty because they are now complicit with that activity.
Mm-hmm.
So racism, people can become complicit with the actions of racism because we're helping it along. That's why it's just popping up all over the place. You don't know when, but it's happening continually because no one's saying it. We're just standing there watching it. And from
Mm-hmm.
what I could see there, and I'm so sorry for the families. I'm like, it's not. I'm going to be insensitive to what just happened to the young man. It's just that, I grieve. We grieve with the family, but you know what? It's going to keep happening if we don't actually take action.
Mm-hmm.
Very strategic, not, okay, I'm sorry, now I'll just blow up. There is a strategic action that we should be taking, and it can start where you're at. You don't have to say, I have to go and be here, but wherever you are at, what can you actually do to begin to stop being complicit with racism?
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good. My next question I want to ask is, what can, like, with African Americans right now, what can they do about the situation? What is some words that you would tell African Americans what they can do about it right now? The situation is going on right now.
I say, you start at home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at home, because I'm just going to say this, and I won't get very deep into it. Maybe at some other time we can get deep into it, but I'm beginning to get to the place where I don't even want to call it racism, because if to do that, to call it racism, is I'm being complicit with it already.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm acknowledging it as if it is something that's real rather than a construct.
Mm-hmm.
And it's put people in there and given them titles and labels so that you really can't identify what it is. So it has to begin with that self-awareness at home and doing what you can. And I'll give you an example. When I first become aware of, oh my God, look at what the system is doing to my children.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things, the first thing I did is I said, oh, you keep telling me that we are nothing. We're not beautiful. And we pass that on and, slap you and you better not, all that kind of stuff. And I said, you know what? One thing I'm going to start doing is that little N word, you will no longer use it in my house.
Mm-hmm.
And if you use it in my house, I will put you out. Now, of course, I could definitely say that to my children, but then what happens when the relatives come over?
Mm-hmm.
We use then, and we use some other words now, like a loving term, and don't realize that we are putting an identity on ourselves, saying and calling us the N. Hey, my N. Look it up. Do you know what that N means? Low down, not worth a whole lot. And we're trying to say it's a nice, loving term. And then now we're becoming complicit with the very thing that's hurting us. That's what I would say. We got to realize how we're participating as well. And so start somewhere. So in my house, I said, you will not use that word. And that meant, here's what it required people to do. Well, if I can't call them that, what else am I going to call them? Well, tell them they're beautiful. Tell them they're great, And another thing I started to do is I said, well, on their birthdays, because, we like to bash people or do the dozens or whatever all that is. And I said, on their birthdays, this is the day that you're going to hear from everybody at this celebration what they like best about you. And it can't be a sarcasm. It can't be a negative joke you're putting out there, because if you've not heard a good word all year long, on this day, everybody's going to go and you're going to hear all these wonderful things about you, because I needed to have the image of my children change from what they were getting out and what I experienced as well when I would go out into the world and there was nothing that I was told that I could do that was well.
That's
Begin
good.
at home and find that thing, find it. And even if do that or do something, begin, and that is a seed that you begin to plant and you water it and you maintain it. And don't think you have to do the big thing. We can start right there, because we have to change the identity of how we see each other.
That's true. That's good. That's really good. And then speaking of, again, you have I look at the African American community, even just in yesterday, and I'm trying to identify who are the leaders, just communities of African American. The one that's standing up. There's no agenda. There's no power behind it. No money behind it. Just that somebody can say, you know what, I'm for my people, and I'm going to lead us. Say it's just to the next level of the situation. So what can they do if people wanted to rise up to be leaders in their community, or people that's already a leader in their community and they wanted to to do something? What would you advise that they do?
I advise that they dream big,
Mm,
get some exposure, go further than 4 blocks,
mm,
explore, see that this world is much bigger than the hate that's being perpetrated on them. That's what leaders do. Leaders are very optimistic. Leaders, they act like they're gonna win and not lose. They don't. We got to get rid of this. I'm a victim. I refuse to be your statistic, which is usually considered your victim. I am not a victim. I am a winner. And I say for leaders, because we all are, I need to say that, we all are. In each and every person, there is something that you were brought here to do and to accomplish in this world, and it was good. It's a good thing. So you have to develop your own leadership giftings inside of you. Yes, they are there. And it might be that thing that keeps coming up over and over again, but you squash or you say it to someone, they say, y'all know, don't you know who we are? We can't do that. Who you think you are? All those who do you think you are stuff, you need to go after that and say, I can get through this and overcome that challenge. And be the leader that I'm intended to be, because we are leaders begin at that in your own house, with your family, with your siblings, at your neighborhood, in the block clubs or whatever. There are leaders all over the place. And yes, you rise up to be greater leaders. But I think we put too much emphasis on that, you're up there, that because you are famous does not make you a leader.
Right. That's true. Yeah.
We are leaders. Each and every one of us. But we've been, and to some degree, here's what I don't like. Everybody, I want a hero. We watch TV and everything is about that one solo hero. And it's like, what are you talking about? Now, I'm a Christian. And as a Christian, for those, and especially for those who are Christians, who's the real leader that we have is God himself. And we should have none other than that. And when we get a hold of that, and it's like, does that line up with what a loving God would have us do? We would be able to distinguish and discern. So I think you have to discern the environment that you're in, discover what it is, and then you create the strategy and come up with a solution for it. We do have the solutions for what's going on within our own home. And that is that, here's another rule. It's like, you are not allowed to fight your sibling.
That's good.
You are not allowed. It's not okay. It's not okay. And if that's the older one, and you should listen to that older one, because the older one should be mentoring the younger ones and learn respect for them. And so those are things leaders begin to do. You practice those leadership things within your own home, within your own sphere of influence. Now, before I need to say this, because before people think, oh yeah, that's kind of easy and that's not going to do anything. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? That is going to do a whole lot. But what if one leader can, like a Dr. Martin Luther King, rise up and you see what happens? What if all of them, all of them rose up and you see what happens? Okay. All right.
That's awesome. That's good. And also, I like that you threw just Christian in there, and because that was my next question. I know a lot of people. Here's my personal thought about when people talk about the church. Right? I feel like every time something happens, the people always say, like, where is the church, or where is the Christians, right? And there's other religions out there. So, but I don't hear people saying, where are Jehovah's Witnesses? Where are the Muslims? It's always, where are the church or Christians, So that's always interesting to me, like when they don't say that. But however, I do believe people want to know, like, and I know that you are a pastor. And what are your thoughts on what can the church do to address this?
My thoughts on church, what the church can do is realize that we are the church of God.
Mm-hmm.
There is one God, one Lord, one baptism. There is only one, quote unquote, race. It's called the human race. Just one. And if the church rises up and let God be God in our lives, hold on, I'm gonna get in there. Let God be God and no other, and no other, not racism, not white, not black, not anything. You let God be God, because God is a God of justice. And God says that humanity has an actual enemy. And it says, and every book has this, you know, whatever religion you want. And if it's a religion that doesn't say that their God is about love, then guess what? It's not a godly religion, is it?
Yeah.
It's really about evil. Seeing that we're talking about the church piece, I'm just going to give you one scripture, John 10:10. There's an enemy there that's purpose is to only kill, steal, and destroy us, humanity, all of us. But it says, but I am the great I am. He has come to earth incarnate so that we could have life, and not just a little bit of life, not just a poor life, not just a little moderate life, but he says that we can have a life that is abundant, rich, not just in materialism, but in quality of life and being able to love one another. And that word that I read says that he wants us to be rooted and grounded in love. And so for all the religions in the world, if the goal isn't to match that of a holy God that says you should be rooted and grounded in love, and know the distinction when you see that's not happening. And when it doesn't happen, like what happened in Minnesota and other places, in the Rodney King and all the way through, and the civil rights movement and all the slavery, all of that, when it is not happening, then the church needs to open their eyes and have ears to hear that that is now something that is anti-God. It's evil. It's outright evil. And how do we sit up and continually be complicit with evil? That should be every God-given, believing person's goal, to be able to distinguish that one thing. If it's not demonstrating love, it's evil. And don't look at the reaction of folks that have not been given that love and then say, oh, that's what evil looks like, and forget that, oh no, evil is slick, sly, and sneaky, very subtle, and very quiet, and has a lot of nerve. When it's exposed, and it wants to sit up there and go, what's wrong with you? What do you mean, what's wrong with you? Evil is abounding there, and the church needs to call it what it is. It's evil. And if I can say this while I'm on that roll, this whole idea for America's sin is that thing called racism, which is a construct to dehumanize a whole group of people. And they put the perpetrators, main perpetrators and beneficiaries of it, they call them white. And you know what a noun is? A person, a place, or a thing. When you're talking about people, we say there's people, they come from a certain place, and things are all the other things that we can say. So where are the white people, number one? Because they're not white. I have white in my shirt. I've not seen one look like that. They're not black. I have black in my shirt. If they're dark, they're nice, rosy, cherry, beautiful, berry purple. There is no white land. There is no black land. So the people, the place, there is none for a white, black. It is something that was constructed so that it can disguise the evil that's being perpetrated on all of us. On all of us. That's what's happening in Minnesota. And then they'll call it something else, and so that we don't see that. But I would say every God-fearing, God-loving person ought to recognize that that is evil and don't become complicit with it. I don't care who's doing it. Do not, you become complicit. You standing there watching. When you see someone standing there watching that happen and you say nothing. Well, we have to understand that we know that this is not love to put a whole group of people somewhere and name them that. And so I don't even want to be called Black. I see this trying to come back again. Oh, you know, Black people. Where's the Black land? There is none. Oh, white people. Where is the white land? There is none. All you need to be saying when you gather that is that you're saying evil. So that's just plug and chug. Plug it in there. When you hear white, you should hear evil, and you should not want to be complicit to that, to say, well, that's where my identity is. And if I can't be that, what do you mean there's something wrong with it? It is something wrong with it. If there is something major wrong with it, it is a construct to commit evil upon the all of humanity. So why would you want your name even associated with it? God forbid. God forbid. It's a construct. It's not you, and get your identity off of it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, and that's really good. And the thing is, like, I think so before we go, I just want to say, like, I feel like this is something that I have in my heart. To kind of piggyback on what you just said, it's not the white people or the Caucasian race, it's the white system that is put in place, right? And this white system say that everybody must be under them, right? So Black people, African Americans, however you want to call it, let's say we are the first identified to say you are less than us, right? And the reason why I believe that every other race should join in with African Americans to make a stand because of the construct. Because right now, if all the African American will just pick up and leave and say, go back to Africa, right? This white superior spirit is going to find the next less race and do them like us, right? Because the spirits say, I need to be superior over somebody.
Yes.
You know, and so if we was to leave right now, it will be whoever they feel like is the less now. And they would start to do what they did to us, to them. So it's not that they are better than us. It's just ain't y'all turn yet, like, per se. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is that if we don't get that spirit and fight this spirit now, because we all know that every Caucasian person is not racist, but when they accept the white construct, and then that's when they become racist and they join into the system. But with everybody who's kind of like standing back, so even the white race that's not part of this structure, everybody should join. Because I tell you right now, if it's 100% Caucasian on this earth, these construct is gonna go for the low income one, the one that's standing in the trailer park, the one that's voting for Trump, per se, whatever. They're gonna go for them because it comes down to that 1% that control the world. And so people have to understand this is why everybody needs to join together and fight. But before we go, let me just let you give a chance to tell everybody where they can find you at, social media, website, or however you want to, so people want to ask questions or contact you later.
Well, I say you can always find me on Rivers of Living Water Christian Center Facebook page. Go on over there and like us, and then you will know that I have written a book. Also, it's called Mentors, Menaces, and Movers. You can go get this book online and Amazon, and you'll also be hearing some of the what I think about what's happening in the world and how we should really be more victorious than we are right now. I do believe that's possible, but we're going to have to stand and be brave and be bold. So Facebook, if you look up #YourRivers, you can look Twitter. It's a Twitter thing anyway, but the Facebook page will probably tell you all of that. But we do flood social media quite a bit with that.
Nice. All right. It was nice having you. Hopefully we can do it together. I mean, like do it again soon, or you can do it with my wife or somebody at some point. But anyway, we will talk to you later, and thank everybody for joining.
All right.
All right.